Jordan and I try to come up with ways to use almost everything we bring into our home, but especially if it's an animal that we've hunted. It only feels right to honor the life that we took by coming up with as many ways as possible to utilize it. Beyond eating the meat, feeding the organs we don't eat to our dog, and tanning the hides into leather, we also use the bones. Bone meal is a common organic fertilizer, and it's usually a byproduct of the beef industry. By making it out of our deer bones, we can avoid having to buy this amendment and replenish our soils organically. First, we use those bones to make stock. We roast them in the oven for about an hour to give them a nice depth of flavor, and then we put them in a large stock pot with some water and whatever else we want to add to the stock. The stems of kale and collard leaves are still full of flavor and nutrients, so I always save them up in the freezer when I'm de-stemming the kale so that I can use them later for stock. Carrots are also a great ingredient for stock. Ours are looking a little worse for wear after a winter spent in a box in our garage, but they're still firm and perfectly edible. By keeping them dirty, they last a really long time, even in suboptimal storage conditions. When we're ready to eat some, we simply pop off those greens that are trying to regrow, rub off all the little root hairs sprouting along the length of them, and give them a good scrub. Yeah.
2 little onions.
That's what we got. I also wanted to add some stinging nettle. Stinging nettle is a real powerhouse of a wild edible that contains all kinds of vitamins and minerals like zinc, magnesium, and iron. We like to save up lots of stinging nettle by drying it out after we harvest it in the spring, and I usually use this for making tea, but it's also a great ingredient for stocks and broths. And then something that I think will make this batch of stock really special is that we added in porcini mushrooms. Porcini mushrooms have a really wonderful sweet, earthy, nutty flavor and are also full of nutrition. I wanted to note that we did not add salt to this stock because we don't want to inadvertently salt the earth with our bone meal. You could probably soak the bones to get rid of any excess salt, but we can always season it later, so there's really no need to add it at this point. After adding in all our ingredients and covering them with lots of water, we cooked it low and slow. We actually left it overnight so it would have lots of time to extract all the good stuff from our ingredients. Oh, you give her a small piece. Did you hear that gulp? It was like gulp.
Chew it first, baby. Good girl. Okay, that's it. All right, we're saving this for later.
After straining out all the bones and vegetables, we put our stock into mason jars, which we'll keep in the freezer until we're ready to take them out and use them. The bones we put back in the oven to dry them out completely and make them even more brittle so that they're easier to crush up. Poultry bones, like chicken, are hollow, so they're really easy to crush. In fact, they usually turn to mush just from the stock making process, but bones from animals like deer or cattle are much denser. We dried these out for several hours and they were still pretty hard to crush afterwards. In the past, we have used a pressure cooker to get them even softer before drying them out, and that does make the process go a little quicker. After the bones are dry and brittle, we used a heavy metal tamping stick to crush them up into our bone meal. Our very cobbled together method using a cardboard box and an old paver does work, but it's a bit messy. When not getting cool slow-mo shots, we did put a towel over the bone fragments while we were crushing them just to keep them from flying out of the box and getting everywhere.
Sponsored by Scrub Daddy.
Not really though.
Not really.
We got that box from Aldi. We don't even have a Scrub Daddy. Go ahead. Once they were as well broken up as we felt like getting them, we used a colander to sift out the smaller pieces to put in the garden, and then the larger chunks we just put into our compost for them to continue breaking down. As one would expect from bones, bone meal contains lots of calcium, but it's also quite high in phosphorus and has moderate amounts of nitrogen. As you may know, nitrogen and phosphorus are two of the three key elements for plant growth, the other one being potassium. Now, just because plants need phosphorus doesn't mean that all soils need phosphorus, so you shouldn't just go dumping excessive amounts of bone meal willy-nilly. But if you're using a compost that comes primarily from animal manure, for example, those are usually quite high in nitrogen, so adding a phosphorus source like bone meal can be just the thing to balance it all out. We recommend doing a soil test before you start adding lots of bone meal, just so that you don't accidentally add an excessive amount of phosphorus to your garden. We tend to spread just a little bit in our garden beds every spring, especially for crops that can really use that extra phosphorus boost, like garlic. Created a new musical instrument. Sounds kind of nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Bone dust. One concern that often comes up with using deer bones for anything is chronic wasting disease, which is a prion disease that's found in deer in certain areas of the country. Prions are most commonly found in the brain and spinal fluid of a deer, but it's still not recommended that you move any parts of the animal from place to place just to avoid the spread of this disease. When we hunt in areas where CWD has been detected, we always send the head into a lab where they have it tested for CWD. Luckily, this is a free service here in Pennsylvania, so you should check in your state if that's something you can do if you have concerns about chronic wasting disease. After we get that negative test result back, we feel comfortable using the rest of the animal in our kitchen and garden safely.
That's what it becomes.
And that's how we try to get every last bit of use from our deer bones. It's a good way to make our gardens more of a self-sustaining system, and as I already mentioned, what we think is a good way to honor the life that nourished us and will now continue to do so by fertilizing our garden. And if you want to learn how to grow and forage your own food, we want to remind you that we have 2 comprehensive online courses that teach you how to do just that. We also have our Living Off the Land bundle that includes both courses. And right now we're having our spring sale, which is the biggest discount of the year. So if you're interested, check it out at the link in the description. And if you qualify for SNAP, WIC, or other financial assistance programs, get in touch with us by email for our sliding scale pricing options.